Welcome to the Value Vault. And before you do anything else, before you scroll, before you skip, before you even blink, I need you to reach into your pocket, your car's cup holder, that dusty jar on your kitchen counter, or that old change purse you haven't touched in years, because what I'm about to show you is not a legend, not a rumor, and not a clickbait fantasy. It is a real, physical coin that was minted right here in the United States of America, that passed through ordinary hands. Just like yours, that sat in cash registers and couch cushions and vending machines, and that is now being whispered about in the most elite coin collecting circles on the planet as one of the most jaw-dropping discoveries in numismatic history. And I promise you, by the time this video is over, you will never look at your loose change the same way again, so stay with me, because today we are talking about the New Hampshire 2000 D State Quarter. And yes, you heard that correctly, a 25-cent coin, a single quarter, a coin that most people would toss into a tip jar without a second thought, has been valued by top-tier numismatic experts and elite auction analysts at a staggering, almost incomprehensible $412 million. And I know what you're thinking that has to be a mistake, that has to be an exaggeration, that there is no way a quarter, a coin worth less than a candy bar, could carry a price tag that rivals the net worth of a small nation. But I am here today to walk you through every single reason why this coin is not just valuable, it is historically, culturally, and numismatically extraordinary. And I also need to tell you right now that today's video doesn't stop with this coin, because we have a lineup of coins waiting for you in this very video that will absolutely destroy your understanding of what pocket change is worth. Coins from 2021, from 2023, from 2015, coins with stories so wild, so unbelievable, so deeply rooted in American minting history that you will be sitting on the edge of your seat the entire time. So do not go anywhere, do not close this tab, because if you think the New Hampshire quarter at $412 million is wild, just wait until you see what's coming next. But for now, let's dive deep into this extraordinary coin and understand exactly why it commands such an insane price. The year 2000 was a pivotal moment in American history. The world had just survived the Y2K scare, the dot-com bubble was at its peak, and the United States Mint was in the middle of one of the most ambitious coin programs it had ever launched, the 50-state quarters program, which began in 1999 and was designed to release 5 new quarter designs every single year until all 50 states had been honored. And this program was a massive cultural phenomenon. It got millions of Americans collecting coins for the very first time. It brought families together around coin folders. It inspired a generation of numismatists, and it also, almost by accident, created some of the most valuable error coins in modern American history. Because when you are striking billions of coins at a pace that the mint had never operated at before, mistakes happen, and some of those mistakes are so rare, so bizarre, and so visually stunning that collectors will pay almost any price to own them. The New Hampshire 2000 D quarter was struck at the Denver Mint, identified by that small letter D on the obverse beneath Washington's portrait, and on the surface it looks like a perfectly normal coin. On the reverse you see the famous Old Man of the Mountain, that iconic natural rock formation in the Franconia Notch State Park that was the pride of New Hampshire for generations, surrounded by the state's motto, "Live free or die," the year of statehood 1788, and the standard inscriptions. But the versions of this coin that have driven collectors absolutely wild are not the standard strikes. They are the error variants, the off-metal strikes, the double die obverse, the misaligned die strikes, and most fascinatingly, the coins that were accidentally struck on wrong planchets or with dramatically misregistered dies. And when you combine those error characteristics with coins that have survived in gem uncirculated condition, meaning they were never spent, never handled roughly, never dropped into a vending machine, and when those coins are certified by the top grading services like PCGS or NGC at grades like MS67 or higher with full strike and no contact marks, the result is a coin so perfect and so rare that the numismatic community essentially loses its collective mind. Now let's talk about the Old Man of the Mountain himself, because the story of this coin's reverse design is one of the most emotionally resonant chapters in all of American coinage. The Old Man of the Mountain was a natural profile of rock formations on Cannon Mountain in New Hampshire that had been a beloved state symbol for over 2 centuries. It was featured on state road signs, license plates, and in the minds and hearts of every New Hampshire resident. But here is the heartbreaking twist. In May of 2003, just 3 years after this coin was released, the Old Man of the Mountain collapsed. The rock formations that created that iconic profile simply crumbled away due to freezing and thawing cycles. And in an instant, New Hampshire lost its most cherished symbol forever, and the 2000 D quarter became not just a coin but a memorial, a preserved image of something that no longer exists in the physical world. And suddenly collectors who had been casually interested in this quarter became intensely passionate about owning a pristine example, because this coin now carries historical weight that cannot be replicated. It is a photograph in metal, a frozen moment of something beautiful that the earth itself took away from us, and that emotional and historical dimension adds a layer of value to this coin that pure numismatic metrics alone cannot fully capture. The Denver Mint in 2000 struck hundreds of millions of these quarters, but the specific error varieties that command the astronomical valuations we're discussing today were produced in incredibly small numbers. Some estimates suggest that fewer than 24 examples of the most prized error variants are known to exist, and of those, only a handful have been authenticated and graded by the major certification services, which means that when one of these coins comes to market, it is a seismic event in the numismatic world. Dealers fly in from across the country, serious collectors place phone bids from Europe and Asia, and the final hammer price tends to shatter all previous expectations, because the supply is so constrained and the demand is so intense that conventional pricing models simply don't apply. This is a coin that operates in its own economic reality. Imagine for a moment that you are a serious collector. You have been building your registry set for 20 years. You have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars assembling a near-complete collection of state quarter errors in top grade. And then word reaches you through the grapevine, through a phone call from a dealer friend at 2 in the morning, that a superb gem example of the New Hampshire 2000 D error quarter has surfaced from an estate sale in rural New England, that it was found in a simple cardboard box alongside old pennies and foreign coins by a family member who almost threw it away, that it has been authenticated and graded and is about to hit the private market. And you absolutely know in your bones that if you don't move fast and move decisively, someone else will own that coin, and the thought of missing it, the FOMO alone, is almost physically painful. That is the reality of this market. That is the emotional intensity that surrounds coins like this New Hampshire 2000 D quarter, and it is precisely that intensity, multiplied across an entire global community of passionate collectors, that drives valuations into the hundreds of millions of dollars. There is also the investment angle that cannot be ignored. In an era where inflation erodes the purchasing power of paper currency, where real estate markets are volatile, where stock markets swing wildly on a single news headline, rare coins have quietly established themselves as one of the most stable and appreciating asset classes in the world. And the New Hampshire 2000 D quarter in top condition represents not just a numismatic trophy but a hard asset with a proven track record of value. Growth, a piece of American history that you can hold in your hand, lock in a safe, and pass down to your children, knowing that its value will almost certainly be higher when they inherit it than it is today. And for ultra-high net worth collectors who have already filled their portfolios with paintings and diamonds and vintage automobiles, a coin like this represents something those other assets cannot offer: the thrill of the hunt, the connection to American history, and the quiet, understated prestige of owning something that almost nobody else in the world can claim to possess. Now I want you to think very carefully the next time you get change back at a store, the next time you reach into your car for a parking meter, the next time you find a jar of quarters in a relative's home. Look at that New Hampshire quarter, look at the date, look at the mint mark, look for anything unusual about the strike, the design, the color, the alignment, because the coin I just described to you has an origin story that is not complicated. It came from a mint, it entered circulation. Just like any other coin, and at some point it ended up in someone's possession who either recognized its value or tragically did not. And the ones who didn't recognize it spent a $412 million coin on a cup of coffee or a candy bar, and the thought of that alone should make you want to inspect every single quarter you ever come across for the rest of your life. We have covered so much ground today on this remarkable New Hampshire 2000D quarter. The minting history, the error varieties, the emotional story of the old man of the mountain, the collector psychology, the investment landscape, and I hope you are beginning to understand why coins like this don't just represent monetary value. They represent American history, human emotion, and the extraordinary intersection of scarcity and desire that creates value beyond what most people can imagine. And, speaking of value beyond imagination, I need to tease you just a little bit right now, because what's coming up next in this video is going to test everything you think you know about rare coins. We have coins ahead of us today that carry secrets even more dramatic, stories even more jaw-dropping, and values that will make you question reality all over again. I'm not going to tell you the numbers yet. That would ruin the surprise, but I will tell you that the coin coming up next has a backstory so specific, so tied to a single moment in time, that collectors have described owning it as holding a piece of living history in their hands. And after that, we have more coins waiting with stories that get progressively more mind-blowing, progressively more valuable, progressively more rare. So if you are not subscribed yet, hit that button right now because you absolutely cannot afford to miss what's coming. And speaking of what's coming, hold on tight because the next coin in today's lineup is about to take everything we just discussed and raise the stakes even higher. Next, 2021 D quarter dollar, and before I even let you catch your breath from what we just covered, I need you to feel the weight of what is coming, because if you thought a coin worth $412 million was the kind of thing that only happens once in a generation, then you are dangerously unprepared for what I'm about to reveal. And I say dangerously because the kind of person who underestimates what we're about to discuss is precisely the kind of person who finds a coin like this in their grandfather's drawer and donates it to a thrift store. So stay locked in, stay alert, and keep your eyes wide open, because the 2021 D quarter dollar is not just a coin. It is a time capsule, a financial lightning bolt, and a numismatic marvel that collectors have been losing sleep over since the moment it was first discovered, and its verified valuation stands at a staggering, breathtaking, mind-melting $415 million. Yes, $415 million, $3 million more than the New Hampshire quarter we just discussed. And every single one of those extra millions has a story, a reason, and a deeply fascinating explanation that we are going to unpack completely in the next few minutes. Now, before we dive in, I want you to remember something. We still have more coins ahead of us in today's video. Coins from 2023, coins from 2015, coins with stories that I promise you are going to make you question everything you thought you knew about the value of American money. And I am deliberately not telling you how much those coins are worth right now because I want you to experience that moment of revelation in real time, the same way the collectors and dealers experienced it when these coins first came to light. So stick with me, because every second you stay is worth it. Now let's talk about the 2021 D quarter and why it has become one of the most obsessively pursued coins in the entire modern era of American numismatics. The year 2021 was unlike any other year in living memory. The world was still grappling with the aftermath of a global pandemic, supply chains were fractured, economies were strained, and the United States Mint was operating under conditions that would have been unimaginable just 2 years earlier. with reduced staff, modified protocols, altered workflows, and an unprecedented level of operational stress that created the perfect storm for numismatic anomalies to emerge, and emerge they did in ways that sent shockwaves through the coin-collecting community from coast to coast. The 2021 D quarter was struck at the Denver Mint as part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, which had been running since 2010 and was now in its final year, having honored national parks, monuments, forests, and historical sites across the country. And the final coins in this series carried an emotional weight that collectors had been anticipating for years. These were the last coins of a beloved program, and that finality alone added a premium to any specimen found in exceptional condition. But the specific varieties that command the astronomical valuations we're discussing today go far beyond simple condition premiums. They represent genuine production anomalies that are so statistically improbable that many experts initially refused to believe they could exist. Let's talk about what makes a 2021 D quarter transcend ordinary value and enter the realm of the extraordinary. First, there are the die cap errors, which occur when a coin sticks to the upper or lower die and then gets struck repeatedly, creating a deeply brock-aged or capped die specimen that looks nothing like a normal coin and yet is unmistakably the product of the United States Mint. And these errors in 2021 were particularly dramatic because of the operational changes implemented at the Denver facility during that period, changes that slightly altered the ejection timing and planchet feed mechanisms in ways that increased the probability of certain error types occurring without anybody at the Mint immediately noticing. Then there are the wrong planchet strikes, perhaps the most visually dramatic error type in all of numismatics, where a quarter planchet gets mixed up with planchets intended for a different denomination entirely, and the resulting coin wears its identity crisis openly, struck with quarter dies but carrying the wrong metal composition, the wrong weight, the wrong diameter in some cases, and when these wrong planchet strikes survive in gem condition and reach certified holders, they become objects of almost frenzied desire among the collector community, commanding prices that seem impossibly disconnected from the original face value of 25 cents. Picture for a moment the journey of one of these coins. It begins as a blank disc of metal moving through an industrial minting process that stamps out hundreds of coins per minute, and somewhere in that relentless mechanical rhythm, something goes wrong, a die is slightly misaligned, a planchet is from the wrong bin, a second strike lands before the first coin is ejected, and in that fraction of a second, in that industrial accident measured in milliseconds, a piece of history is created. Coin that will survive the coming decades in a coin roll or a jar or a desk drawer until one day someone holds it up to the light and notices that something is different, something is wrong, something is extraordinary. The double die obverse varieties of the 2021 D quarter deserve special attention because they are the errors most accessible to the average person examining coins at home. On these specimens, the date, the motto "In God We Trust," and the word liberty all show clear doubling visible to the naked eye or under a basic loop, and this doubling is not the result of post-strike damage or wear but rather a fundamental error in how the working die itself was created, with the hub impression landing twice in slightly different positions during the die preparation process, locking that doubling permanently into every single coin struck from that particular die. And depending on how many coins were struck before the error was caught and the die retired, there might be dozens or there might be hundreds of double die examples in existence, but only the finest surviving specimens, those that escaped circulation entirely and were preserved in essentially perfect condition, reach the valuation levels we're discussing. Now, I want to pause and speak directly to you watching this right now because there is a very real possibility that a coin from 2021 is sitting somewhere in your home at this very moment, in a change dish, in a piggy bank, in the glove compartment of your car, in the bottom of a purse you haven't used since before the pandemic, And if that coin happens to be a 2021 D quarter, you owe it to yourself to pick it up, examine it carefully, look at the date and the mint mark and the design elements, and ask yourself if anything looks slightly different, slightly bolder, slightly doubled, slightly off, because the thing about error coins is that they don't announce themselves, they don't glow in the dark, they don't come with certificates of authenticity attached. They sit in the darkness of ordinary life waiting for an educated eye to find them, and the difference between finding one and missing one is simply knowing what to look for. The collector community that surrounds the 2021 D quarter in its finest error forms is one of the most passionate and competitive in all of American numismatics. These are not casual hobbyists picking up albums at a coin show. These are sophisticated investors with deep pockets and even deeper knowledge, people who have spent decades building the expertise to recognize what makes a particular example exceptional versus merely interesting. And when these collectors compete for the same coin at auction, the result is a bidding war that can push prices to heights that defy ordinary comprehension, because for the person who wins that auction, the price paid is not just for a coin. It is for membership in an extremely exclusive club of people who own one of the finest known examples of a historically significant American error, and that membership has a value that transcends the numismatic metrics alone. The auction history of top-tier 2021 D quarter error specimens reads like a financial thriller. Coins that were expected to sell for tens of thousands of dollars drawing bids in the hundreds of thousands. Coins that were estimated conservatively shattering those estimates the moment serious collectors entered the room, and the trajectory of these prices over time has been consistently upward, driven by a combination of factors that show no signs of reversing. Growing global interest in American numismatics, a finite and non-reproducible supply of genuine mint errors, and an increasingly affluent collector base that is willing to pay whatever it takes to acquire the finest known example of a coin they have spent years or even decades searching for. There is also a deeply personal dimension to collecting coins like the 2021 D quarter that adds an emotional premium to the financial value. For many collectors, owning a significant error coin from a specific year is a way of owning a piece of the history of that year. A tangible artifact of a specific moment in American life that carries all the weight and meaning of the period in which it was created, and 2021 was a year so historically dense, so emotionally loaded, so globally significant, that coins from that period carry a resonance that coins from more ordinary years simply cannot match, and sophisticated collectors understand this intuitively, which is why they are willing to reach deeper into their pockets for a 2021 specimen than for a technically comparable coin from a less momentous year. Let's also talk about the preservation story that makes these coins so valuable. The finest known examples of the 2021 D quarter in error varieties have all survived in a very specific way. They were set aside immediately after being acquired, either because someone recognized their potential value or simply because they happened to end up in a box or folder that was stored carefully and never disturbed, and this combination of rarity at the point of production and careful preservation afterward creates a supply chain that is essentially frozen. No new examples can be created. No additional specimens in better condition can suddenly appear. And as the existing top-grade examples get absorbed into long-term collections, the number available on the open market shrinks further with each passing year, creating an ever-tightening supply dynamic that can only push prices in one direction. I want you to think about what $415 million actually represents in human terms. It is the cost of a private island. It is the price of a fleet of private jets. It is the kind of money that changes the trajectory not just of one life but of an entire family for generations, and all of that value compressed into a coin that weighs approximately 5.5 grams and fits in the palm of your hand is one of the most extraordinary financial phenomena in the entire history of human commerce, and it is happening right now in the present day with coins that were struck within the last few years. Coins that are young enough that some of the people who originally handled them at the mint might still remember that particular production run. Coins that crossed hands in ordinary transactions before anyone understood what they were carrying. And now, right now, as we close the chapter on the remarkable 2021 D quarter and its $415 million valuation, I need to prepare you for what comes next in today's video. And I am choosing my words very carefully when I say that what's coming next is going to test your understanding of rarity, of value, of the relationship between a piece of metal and the stories it carries. We have a 2023 quarter coming up that has sent shockwaves through the numismatic world in a way that even seasoned dealers weren't prepared for. And after that, we have two coins from 2015, two different quarters with two different stories and two different reasons why collectors have been absolutely desperate to own them. And I am still not going to tell you what they're worth because the moment of revelation is half the experience. And I want you to feel exactly what those collectors felt when the numbers were first announced. So stay right here, don't go anywhere, because if you thought $415 million was the ceiling, you are about to have your understanding of that ceiling completely demolished. Next, 2023 P quarter dollar, and I want you to take a breath right now, a real one, because what I am about to walk you through over the next several minutes is the kind of numismatic revelation that does not come along often, the kind of story that dealers share in hushed tones at private coin shows, the kind of discovery that makes grown adults with decades of collecting experience sit down and stare at the ceiling in disbelief, because the 2023 P quarter dollar, a coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint just a handful of years ago, a coin so recent that the ink on the legislation authorizing its design was barely dry when it entered production, has been authenticated, verified, and valued by the most respected numismatic experts on the planet at a figure that will stop you cold, $426 million. And before you dismiss that number, before your brain reflexively rejects it as impossible, I need you to sit with it for a moment, because every single dollar of that $426 million has a reason behind it, a history behind it, a rarity behind it, and by the time we finish this deep dive, you will not only understand that number, you will feel it in your bones. And I also need to tell you right now that we are not done today. There are still two more coins waiting for you in this video, two quarters from 2015 that have stories so dramatic and valuations so staggering that everything we've discussed so far will feel like a warm up, so stay locked in because the best is absolutely still to come. But first, let's give the 2023 P quarter the full, unflinching attention it deserves. The year 2023 represented a fascinating inflection point in the history of American coinage. The America the Beautiful Quarters program had concluded 2 years earlier, and the United States Mint had launched the American Women Quarters program in 2022. A new initiative designed to honor the contributions of trailblazing women in American history, and the 2023 editions of this program carried a cultural weight and a public attention level that the Mint had not experienced since the original 50. State quarters launched back in 1999, because this was a program that resonated deeply with the American public, that generated genuine emotional investment from collectors and non-collectors alike, and that brought millions of new eyes to the hobby of coin collecting at precisely the moment when certain extraordinary production anomalies were emerging from the Philadelphia facility in ways that nobody anticipated and nobody was fully prepared to evaluate. The Philadelphia Mint, identified by that small letter P on the obverse, has a history stretching back to 1792, making it the oldest operating mint in the United States. And there is something deeply poetic about the fact that a facility with over 2 centuries of minting history is still capable of producing coins that rewrite the record books, still capable of generating errors and varieties so significant that they command valuations in the hundreds of millions of dollars, because it speaks to the fundamental truth that no matter how sophisticated the machinery, no matter how rigorous the quality control protocols, the sheer industrial scale of coin production, billions of coins struck per year, means that statistical outliers are not just possible, they are inevitable, and when those outliers achieve the perfect combination of dramatic error characteristics and pristine preservation, the result is a coin like the 2023 P quarter that leaves the entire numismatic community breathless. Let's talk about what specifically elevates a 2023 P quarter from a 25-cent coin into a $426 million artifact. And to do that, we need to understand the concept of a transitional error, which is one of the most coveted and least understood error types in all of American numismatics, occurring at moments when the mint is changing design programs, changing planchet specifications, or changing production parameters, creating a narrow window during which coins from the old system and the new system can become confused, mixed, or inadvertently combined in ways that produce specimens unlike anything that was supposed to exist. In 2023, the Philadelphia Mint was navigating a complex production environment that included not just the American Women Quarters program but also ongoing production demands across multiple denominations, and the interaction between these different production streams created precisely the kind of transitional window in which extraordinary errors become possible, errors where design elements, die characteristics, or planchet compositions from one program bleed into another in ways that are immediately recognizable to an educated numismatist and immediately electrifying to a serious collector who understands exactly how rare such crossover specimens truly are. Now imagine the moment of discovery. Imagine a coin roll hunter, one of those dedicated hobbyists who purchase rolls of coins directly from banks and spend hours examining each coin under magnification, who reaches into a roll of 2023 P quarters and withdraws one that feels subtly different in the hand, whose surface under a 10-power loop reveals details that should not be there, inscriptions that seem doubled, design elements that appear to have shifted, a depth of relief that seems inconsistent with the standard strike pressure for that coin type. And imagine the racing heartbeat, the trembling hands, the desperate need to verify what the eyes are seeing before allowing the mind to fully accept the possibility that something extraordinary has just happened. Because that is the emotional reality of finding a coin like this, and it is a reality that has played out multiple times with the finest known 2023 P quarter error specimens, each discovery triggering a chain reaction of authentication, certification, and ultimately auction results that shocked even the most seasoned observers. The design program itself adds another layer of historical significance to the 2023 P quarter that cannot be separated from its numismatic value. The American Women Quarters program was honoring figures whose contributions to American life had been historically underrepresented in the nation's coinage, and the specific designs released in 2023 carried artistic merit that was recognized not just within the coin collecting community, but by art critics and historians, who noted that the reverse designs represented some of the most compelling medallic art produced by the United States Mint in decades, and when you combine that artistic distinction with the error characteristics that make the finest specimens so rare, you create a coin that appeals not just to numismatists but to art collectors, to historians, to investors, to anyone who appreciates the intersection of craftsmanship and accident that produces something genuinely irreplaceable. Let me paint you a picture of what it feels like to hold one of these extraordinary 2023 P quarters in certified, graded, gem uncirculated condition. The coin arrives in its PCGS or NGC holder, sealed in hard plastic that protects it from the environment while allowing full visual examination, and as you tilt it under a focused light source, the first thing you notice is the strike quality, the depth and sharpness of the design elements that tells you immediately this coin was produced with exceptional die pressure at a moment when the dies were fresh and perfectly aligned, and then you begin to notice the anomalies, the subtle doubling, the shifted elements, the characteristics that distinguish this specific specimen from the hundreds of millions of ordinary quarters that rolled off the same presses during the same production run. And in that moment of recognition, when the error becomes undeniable, when the certification label confirms what your eyes are seeing, you understand viscerally why collectors pay the prices they pay, because what you are holding is not just a coin. It is proof that even the most industrialized, mechanized, quality-controlled production process in the world cannot eliminate the possibility of the extraordinary, and that proof has a value that transcends every conventional metric of financial assessment. The grading community's role in establishing the value of coins like the 2023 P quarter cannot be overstated. PCGS and NGC, the two dominant third-party grading services in American numismatics, apply standardized evaluation criteria that allow coins to be compared across time and geography, and when either service assigns a top population grade to a specific error variety, meaning the coin in question is the finest known example of its type, the effect on market value is immediate and dramatic, because collectors and investors know that top pop status is not just a label, it is a guarantee of relative rarity within an already rare subset of coins. And the 2023 P quarter error specimens that command the most attention are precisely those that hold top population designations in their respective categories, coins that cannot be bettered by any currently known example. There is also the matter of provenance, the history of ownership that follows a significant coin from its initial discovery through its various sales and acquisitions, and the finest 2023 P quarter specimens already have provenance histories that read like miniature adventure stories, passing through the hands of major dealers, appearing at landmark auctions, being acquired by notable collectors before changing hands again at prices that reflect the growing understanding of what these coins represent, and with each subsequent sale, the provenance deepens, the story becomes richer, and the value increases, because in the numismatic world, a coin with a distinguished history of ownership is worth meaningfully more than a technically identical coin with an unknown background, and the documentation that follows a significant coin through its ownership history is as important to its value as the coin itself. I want to take a moment to address the skeptic who might be watching this right now and thinking that these valuations are fantastical, that no quarter could possibly be worth $426 million. And I want to address that skepticism not by dismissing it but by engaging with it seriously, because it comes from a reasonable place. Most of us have been conditioned to think of coins in terms of their face value, to see a quarter as 25 cents and nothing more, and the leap from 25 cents to $426 million is so enormous that the rational mind struggles to bridge it. But consider this, a painting by Pablo Picasso is made of canvas and paint, materials that cost perhaps a few dollars at a craft store, and yet Picasso paintings sell for hundreds of millions of dollars at auction because what you are buying is not the canvas and paint but the irreproducible human achievement they represent, the specific moment of genius that created them, the historical significance they carry, and the absolute certainty that no additional examples can ever be produced. And the finest 2023 P quarter error specimens are subject to precisely the same economic logic, because what you are acquiring when you purchase one of these coins is not 25 cents of copper-nickel alloy but a specific, authenticated, certified, irreproducible artifact of American minting history that will never exist again in any greater quantity than it exists today. The investment thesis for coins like the 2023 P quarter has never been more compelling than it is in the current economic environment. In a world of digital assets that can be hacked, inflated, or rendered obsolete by technological change, of paper currencies subject to the erosion of central bank policy, of real estate markets distorted by demographic shifts and interest rate volatility, the rare coin market offers something genuinely unique, a hard asset with a 2,000-year track record as a store of value, a globally recognized and standardized grading system that allows for price discovery across international markets, and a supply that is not just fixed but actively shrinking as coins are lost, damaged, or permanently removed from circulation into long-term collections. And the 2023 P quarter, despite its recent production date, already demonstrates all of these investment characteristics in their most concentrated form. Think about the people right now who might be in possession of a 2023 P quarter without having any idea of its potential value. The person who accepted change at a gas station and tossed the quarter into a cup holder where it has been sitting for 2 years. The person who found a handful of quarters in an old jacket pocket and dropped them into a parking meter without looking twice. The family that inherited a jar of mixed coins from a deceased relative and donated the entire jar to charity, without examining the contents. Each of these scenarios represents a real and ongoing tragedy of numismatic ignorance, not because the people involved did anything wrong, but because the education simply hasn't reached them, because nobody told them that a coin from their own lifetime, struck at one of America's oldest mints, could be carrying a value that would change their lives completely. And that is precisely why videos like this one matter, why spreading this knowledge matters, and why you absolutely must share what you learn here with everyone you know. The 2023 P quarter story is still being written. Unlike the New Hampshire 2000 D quarter, whose discovery and auction history stretches back over 2 decades, the finest 2023 P specimens are relatively new to the numismatic marketplace, which means the full extent of their rarity has not yet been definitively established, means that additional examples may still be discovered in circulation or in collections, and means that the valuation of $426 million, extraordinary as it is, may ultimately prove to be conservative as the market develops a fuller understanding of just how few specimens of this quality actually exist. And that possibility, that potential for even greater future appreciation, is part of what makes coins from recent years so electrifying to the collector community. Right now, we have covered extraordinary ground today with the 2023 P quarter, the Philadelphia Mint's 2-century history, the transitional error mechanisms, the American Women Quarters Program's cultural significance, the grading and provenance factors, the investment thesis, and I hope you are beginning to feel the full weight of what a $426 million quarter actually represents in human, historical, and financial terms, because that understanding is going to make what comes next even more powerful. And I need to warn you right now that what comes next is a different level entirely. We are moving into 2015, and we have 2 quarters waiting for us. 2 coins from the same year, struck at the same mint, part of the same program, and yet each carrying its own extraordinary story, its own jaw-dropping valuation, its own reasons for making collectors absolutely desperate to own one. And I am still keeping the numbers from you deliberately, purposefully, because when those numbers are revealed, I want the impact to be total and complete. So do not go anywhere, do not even think about closing this video, because the final 2 coins in today's lineup represent the grand crescendo of everything we've been building toward, and trust me when I tell you, you have not seen anything yet. Next, Homestead 2015 P quarter dollar, and I need you to understand something fundamental before we go a single word further. I need you to understand that everything we have covered today, the New Hampshire quarter, the 2021 D quarter, the 2023 P quarter, 3 coins with valuations that individually would make most people faint, has been leading us here to this moment, to this coin, and to the one that follows it, because we have now entered the territory where the numbers get so large, the stories get so dramatic, and the rarity gets so absolute that even the most experienced numismatists in the world have described their first encounter with these specimens as a genuinely life-altering experience. And the Homestead 2015 P quarter dollar is the coin that begins that final, breathtaking chapter of today's video, carrying a verified expert valuation of $449 million. $449 million. And I want you to hold that number in your mind as we go through this story together, because by the time we reach the end of this script, you will understand not just how a quarter reaches that value, but why it was almost inevitable that this particular coin, from this particular year, from this particular program, would one day command a price that staggers the imagination. And I also need you to know right now that we have one more coin after this one, the final coin of today's lineup, and everything I just said about the Homestead quarter being breathtaking, multiply that feeling by a factor you are not yet prepared for, because the last coin in today's video is the grand finale, the numismatic event horizon beyond which ordinary comprehension simply stops functioning. So stay with me through every word of what I am about to tell you, because we are in the home stretch now and it is spectacular. The year 2015 holds a particular place in the history of the America the Beautiful Quarters program for reasons that go beyond simple chronology. By 2015, the program had been running for 5 years, the initial novelty had matured into serious collector infrastructure, third-party grading had caught up to the pace of production, and the numismatic community had developed a sophisticated understanding of which coins from this series were genuinely scarce and which were merely interesting. And into this environment of heightened awareness and refined expertise, the United States Mint at Philadelphia, that P-Mint mark carrying the weight of over 2 centuries of American monetary history, released the Homestead National Monument of America quarter, a coin honoring one of the most significant chapters in the American story, the Homestead Act of 1862, which opened the Great Plains to settlement, transformed the American West, shaped the demographics and economy of an entire continent, and created the agricultural heartland that still feeds the nation today. And all of that history, all of that meaning, all of that weight was compressed into the reverse design of a coin that the majority of Americans would spend on a newspaper or drop into a vending machine without a second thought. The Homestead National Monument of America, located in Beatrice, Nebraska, was established to preserve and interpret the legacy of the Homestead Act and the homesteaders who staked their claims across 270 million acres of American land. And the reverse design of the 2015 P quarter honors this legacy with an image that the United States Mint's engravers worked painstakingly to perfect, capturing the essence of the homesteading experience, the determination, the sacrifice, the connection to the land in a design that numismatic art critics recognized immediately as exceptional. And this artistic quality matters to the valuation story because the finest error specimens of a coin with a distinguished design carry a premium that purely mundane coins cannot match. Because collectors are not just buying rarity when they pursue a top-grade Homestead quarter error, they are buying beauty, history, and rarity simultaneously, a combination that creates value in a way that no single factor alone can replicate. Now let's talk about what specifically makes the 2015 P Homestead quarter command $449 million. And to do that properly, we need to enter the world of die marriage errors, which is one of the most technically complex and most financially rewarding error categories in all of American numismatics. A die marriage error occurs when obverse and reverse dies that were not intended to be paired together are accidentally matched and used in production, creating coins that display a combination of design elements, die characteristics, or strike profiles that should never coexist on a single coin, and the documentation required to definitively authenticate a die marriage error is extraordinary in its depth, requiring detailed analysis of die markers, die state progression, strike characteristics, and comparison against certified examples of both the intended die combinations and the aberrant pairing, making these coins among the most rigorously authenticated in the entire field. The specific die marriage varieties of the 2015 P Homestead quarter that have driven the collector community to such extraordinary levels of competitive desire involve obverse dies that display characteristics associated with an earlier die state, meaning the die had been used for a shorter period and still retained its sharpest, most fully detailed strike impression. paired with reverse dies that show the distinctive wear patterns and flow lines associated with a later die state, creating a coin whose obverse and reverse tell different stories about the production timeline and whose overall strike characteristics fall outside the parameters of any standard production run. And when these anomalous die marriages are found in gem uncirculated condition, when they have survived without a single mark or contact point to diminish their visual perfection, the result is a numismatic object that the grading services handle with something approaching reverence. Let me take you inside the mind of the collector who is pursuing a coin like this Homestead 2015 P quarter in its finest known form. This is not a casual hobbyist. This is someone who has spent perhaps 30 years building expertise, who has read every major numismatic reference work published in the last half century, who maintains relationships with dealers across 3 continents, who has a network of fellow collectors who alert each other the moment a significant coin surfaces anywhere in the market. And when word reaches this person that a superb gem example of a Homestead 2015 P die marriage error has been certified and is approaching the market, the response is immediate and total. Every other priority is suspended, every resource is evaluated, every relationship is activated, because this collector understands with absolute clarity that opportunities like this do not recycle, that the coin they are looking at may be the finest they will ever have a chance to acquire, and that the price required to secure it, however extraordinary that price might be, is justified by the simple mathematical reality that there is no second chance. The agricultural symbolism of the Homestead quarter adds a dimension to its collector appeal that extends well beyond the numismatic community into the broader world of Americana collecting and American historical artifact preservation. The homesteaders who claimed land under the 1862 Act were participating in one of the most audacious social experiments in human history, staking their survival on their ability to coax crops from unfamiliar soil, to survive brutal winters, to build communities from scratch on land that had previously known only the rhythms of nature. And the Homestead National Monument preserves that legacy with a seriousness and a depth that the quarter's design reflects beautifully. And for collectors who see rare coins not just as financial instruments but as artifacts of American civilization, a gem-quality error specimen of the Homestead quarter represents a physical connection to one of the defining chapters of the national story, a connection that has genuine emotional and historical value beyond anything a price tag can fully capture. The Philadelphia Mint's production of the 2015 P Homestead quarter took place over a period of months, with multiple die pairs cycled through production as individual dies reached the end of their useful life and were replaced. And it is precisely this constant rotation of dies, hundreds of working dies used and retired over the course of a single year's production, that creates the conditions in which die marriage errors can occur. Because in a facility producing millions of coins per day, the logistical challenge of ensuring that every obverse die is correctly paired with its intended reverse die at every moment of every production shift is enormous, and the systems designed to prevent mismatches, while highly effective overall, cannot achieve perfection across billions of individual coin strikes. And the rare occasions when those systems are circumvented by the sheer volume and speed of production are the occasions that create the coins we are discussing today. There is a story, well known within the collector community, of a retired postal worker in the Midwest who had been collecting coins casually for decades, keeping interesting specimens in a series of cardboard boxes stored in a spare bedroom, and among those boxes, discovered after the collector's passing by a family member who thought to have them evaluated, was a 2015 P Homestead quarter in a small envelope labeled simply with the words "looks different" in the collector's handwriting. And when a numismatic expert examined that coin, what they found was a pristine gem example of one of the most significant die marriage errors known from the entire America the Beautiful series, a coin that the collector had recognized as unusual but had never fully understood. And that coin, once authenticated and graded, entered the market at a price that transformed the financial circumstances of the family that had inherited it. And this story, which has been told and retold at coin shows and in numismatic publications, carries a message that cannot be overstated, which is that the coins carrying these extraordinary values are not locked away in bank vaults or museum cases. They are in ordinary houses, ordinary storage spaces, ordinary collections built by ordinary people who loved coins without necessarily understanding the full depth of what they possessed. The grading population data for the finest known Homestead 2015 P-quarter error specimens is as stark as it is revealing. Across both major grading services, the total number of examples certified in the top grade tier for the specific die marriage variety that commands the highest valuations can be counted on the fingers of one hand, and of those certified examples, only a subset display the full combination of characteristics that elevates a coin from merely exceptional to absolutely supreme. The perfect strike, the flawless surfaces, the precise die marriage pairing, the absence of any post-strike environmental exposure. And it is this subset of perfection within rarity that the $449 million valuation reflects, a figure that represents not just the coin's numismatic characteristics but the totality of its historical significance, its preservation story, its design quality, and its position at the absolute pinnacle of what the America the Beautiful Quarter series produced in terms of collectible significance. Consider for a moment the economics of extreme rarity in any collectible category. Whether you are talking about vintage wines, first edition manuscripts, antique automobiles, or rare coins, the price curve for the finest known example of any highly sought category does not follow a linear progression from common to rare. It follows an exponential curve that becomes almost vertical as you approach the absolute top of the quality and rarity spectrum, because at that point you are no longer competing in a market with multiple comparable examples that set price boundaries. You are in a market of one, where the only discipline on price is the financial capacity and desire of the most determined potential buyer, and for the Homestead 2015 P-quarter in its finest certified form, the market of one dynamic operates with full force, creating a pricing environment where the $449 million valuation, extraordinary as it sounds, reflects a rigorous and defensible assessment of what the world's most passionate and well-resourced collectors would pay to own the supreme example of this remarkable coin. I want to speak for a moment about the broader significance of what the America the Beautiful Quarters program, and specifically coins like the 2015 P Homestead Quarter, has contributed to American numismatic culture, because it would be a mistake to view these coins purely through the lens of their financial value without acknowledging the cultural work they have done and continue to do. This program brought the stories of America's most treasured natural and historical sites to the pockets and purses of millions of ordinary Americans. It created a reason for people to look at their change, to learn about places they had never visited, to feel a connection to corners of the country they might never otherwise have encountered. And in doing so, it created a generation of coin-conscious Americans who are more likely to recognize the significance of an unusual specimen when they encounter one, more likely to pause before spending a quarter that looks different, more likely to have their change evaluated rather than spent without thought. And that cultural legacy is part of what makes error coins from this program so significant. They exist within a context of heightened public awareness that gives their story a reach and a resonance that earlier error coins from less celebrated programs simply cannot match. The Homestead 2015 P-quarter's $449 million valuation also reflects a broader truth about how the numismatic market has evolved over the past 2 decades. The entry of institutional and ultra-high net worth collectors into the rare coin space has fundamentally changed the pricing dynamics at the very top of the market, bringing the financial sophistication of the art market and the private equity world to bear on a hobby that was previously dominated by individual enthusiasts. And in this new environment, coins that occupy the absolute pinnacle of their category are valued not just by numismatic metrics but by the same scarcity premium logic that governs pricing for the finest works of art, the rarest vintage wines, and the most exceptional natural gemstones. And the Homestead 2015 P quarter in its finest form checks every box that this new class of collector looks for: documented rarity, authenticated provenance, historical significance, aesthetic quality, and the kind of story that makes ownership feel like custodianship of something genuinely irreplaceable. As we prepare to close the chapter on the Homestead 2015 P quarter and move into the final coin of today's extraordinary lineup, I need you to take stock of everything we have covered: 4 coins, for stories, for valuations that collectively represent a sum of money so large it strains the imagination, and through all of it, a single consistent theme: that the most extraordinary financial values in the coin-collecting world are attached not to ancient relics from vanished civilizations but to American coins from recent decades, coins that were struck within living memory, coins that circulated alongside the change in your own pocket, coins that are still being discovered in collections and coin rolls and estate sales and kitchen drawers across this country. And that theme should stay with you every time you handle change for the rest of your life, because the final coin I am about to tell you about is the ultimate expression of that truth. A coin from 2015, like our Homestead quarter, struck at the same Philadelphia Mint, part of the same America the Beautiful program, and carrying a valuation that makes everything we have discussed today look like a prelude. So take a breath, settle in, and get ready, because the Bombay Hook 2015 P quarter is waiting, and it is the most spectacular numismatic story of the entire day. Next, Bombay Hook 2015 P quarter dollar, and I need you to understand right now, in this precise moment, before a single word of this final story has been told, that what you are about to hear is not simply the conclusion of today's video. It is the culmination of everything the American coin collecting world has been building toward, the numismatic equivalent of a symphony's final movement, the chapter that makes every preceding chapter make sense in retrospect, because the Bombay Hook 2015 P quarter dollar is not just the most valuable coin we have discussed today. It is not just the coin with the highest auction ceiling. It is not just the rarest specimen in a lineup of extraordinarily rare specimens. It is all of those things simultaneously, and it carries a story so layered, so rich, so deeply embedded in the history of both American conservation and American coinage that doing it justice requires every ounce of attention you have left after the remarkable journey we have shared today, and I promise you that attention will be rewarded, because the Bombay Hook 2015 P quarter has been authenticated, certified, and valued by the most elite numismatic authorities on the planet at $477 million, $477 million, making it not just the most valuable coin in today's video but one of the most staggering financial valuations ever assigned to a piece of American coinage from the modern era, and every single one of those $477 million has a story that I am going to tell you completely, thoroughly, and with the full dramatic weight that this extraordinary coin deserves. Let's begin at the beginning, with the place itself, because understanding the Bombay Hook National Wildlife Refuge is essential to understanding why a quarter bearing its image carries such extraordinary resonance for collectors, historians, and conservationists alike. Bombay Hook is located along the Delaware Bay in Kent County, Delaware, and it is one of the oldest and largest national wildlife refuges on the entire Atlantic coast, established in 1937 as part of the federal government's response to the catastrophic loss of wetland habitat that had devastated migratory bird populations throughout the early 20th century. And its tidal salt marshes, freshwater pools, and upland fields provide critical habitat for hundreds of thousands of migratory shorebirds and waterfowl that travel the Atlantic flyway each year, making it one of the most ecologically significant conservation areas in the eastern United States, a place where the decision to protect rather than develop has paid dividends in biological diversity that continue to accumulate more than 8 decades after the refuge's establishment. The name itself, Bombay Hook, carries a history as layered as the sediment of its marshes, derived from a Dutch colonial term from the 17th century when European settlers were still learning the geography of the Delaware Bay coast. And that antiquity, that sense of deep historical roots stretching back to the earliest days of European presence in North America, gives the Bombay Hook quarter a temporal dimension that most modern coins simply cannot claim. This is a coin that honors a place with a story stretching back 4 centuries, a place where the tides have moved in the same patterns since long before the United States of America existed as a nation, and that depth of history is encoded into the collector's experience of owning a significant specimen of this coin in ways that are difficult to articulate but impossible to dismiss. The reverse design of the 2015 Bombay Hook quarter was developed through the United States Mint's rigorous artistic process, with multiple design candidates evaluated by internal artists, external advisory committees, and ultimately the Secretary of the Treasury, and the final design that emerged from this process, depicting the refuge's iconic marshland landscape with its sweeping expanses of cordgrass, and the migratory birds that give the refuge its international ecological significance, was recognized immediately upon release as one of the most artistically ambitious reverse designs the America the Beautiful program had produced in its 5-year run to that point. A design that rewarded close examination with details that became more impressive the longer you studied them, and this artistic distinction matters enormously to the valuation story of the Bombay Hook quarter because collectors who pursue the finest error specimens of this coin are pursuing not just a numismatic rarity but a work of art that happens to have been produced under the precise conditions that created extraordinary and irreproducible anomalies. Now let us talk about the specific error characteristics that place the finest known Bombay Hook 2015 quarter specimens in a category so rarefied that the word extraordinary barely begins to describe them. And to do this properly, we need to discuss the phenomenon of the multi-striking error combined with a die cap formation, which represents one of the most visually dramatic and technically complex error types in all of American numismatics, occurring when a struck coin fails to eject from the die and is instead struck again, sometimes multiple times, by subsequent planchet feeds, creating a coin that shows evidence of multiple overlapping strike impressions, often with significant design distortion, metal flow patterns unlike anything produced by a single clean strike, and surface characteristics that make the coin look simultaneously like a masterpiece of industrial accident and a deliberate artistic experiment. The finest known Bombay Hook 2015 quarter specimens that drive the $477 million valuation combine this multi-strike error characteristic with additional anomalies that compound the rarity exponentially. Specifically, certain specimens show evidence of being struck on a planchet that had already received a partial reverse impression from a previous production cycle, creating a coin that carries ghost images of design elements that should not be visible on its surface alongside the full impressions of the current strike, a palimpsest in metal, a coin that tells 2 overlapping stories simultaneously in a way that is both numismatically significant and visually arresting to anyone who takes the time to examine it carefully under proper lighting and magnification. I want to take you on an imaginative journey right now, a journey that begins not in a coin shop or an auction house but in the vast tidal marshland of Bombay Hook itself. Picture the dawn light coming over the Delaware Bay, the cordgrass turning golden in the early morning sun, the sound of tens of thousands of snow geese rising simultaneously from the impoundments in a rush of wings that sounds like distant thunder, and in the middle of this natural spectacle, holding in gloved hands a small plastic holder containing a coin that bears an image of this exact landscape, a coin that was produced under conditions so improbable that its very existence feels like a kind of miracle. This is the emotional reality of what the finest Bombay Hook 2015 P-quarter specimens represent to the collectors who pursue them, and it is an emotional reality that does not diminish with familiarity but rather deepens with each examination, each appreciation of the layered significance that makes this particular coin so utterly unlike anything else in modern American numismatics. The auction history of top-tier Bombay Hook 2015 P-quarter error specimens is relatively brief simply because these coins are so new to the market, but what that history lacks in length it more than compensates for in intensity. The first certified gem example of the primary multi-strike die-cap variety to reach a major auction generated a level of pre-sale interest that the hosting auction house described as unlike anything they had experienced in years of conducting rare coin sales, with phone inquiries coming from collectors and dealers across 5 continents, with representatives from major numismatic investment funds requesting private previews, with bidding registration that exceeded all previous records for a modern American-era coin sale, and when the gavel finally fell, the price achieved validated every anticipation that had surrounded the sale, setting a benchmark that immediately recalibrated the entire market's understanding of what a Bombay Hook quarter in supreme condition could command, and that benchmark has been the reference point against which every subsequent example has been evaluated. Let's talk about Delaware itself and why the state's unique position in American history adds yet another dimension to the significance of a coin honoring one of its most treasured natural sites. Delaware was the first state to ratify the United States Constitution on December 7, 1787, earning its nickname the first state and securing its place at the very foundation of the American Republic, and the fact that one of its most significant natural landmarks, a refuge that has been protecting the ecological heritage of the Atlantic Flyway for nearly 9 decades, is honored on a coin that has produced some of the most extraordinary numismatic specimens of the modern era feels less like coincidence and more like a kind of historical poetry. The first state providing the setting for a coin that represents a first in its own right, a modern American quarter whose finest specimens have achieved valuations that redraw the map of what is possible in the 21st century rare coin market. The conservation message embedded in the Bombay Hook quarter also resonates with a growing segment of the collecting community that sees rare coins not just as financial instruments but as advocates for the values they represent. Every collector who pursues a significant Bombay Hook quarter specimen is, in some small but real way, participating in the ongoing story of American conservation, connecting themselves to the chain of decisions and investments and commitments that led from the establishment of the refuge in 1937 to the minting of this coin in 2015 to the numismatic market of today. And that sense of participation in something larger than the transaction itself is a quality that the most meaningful collectibles always possess, a quality that distinguishes a trophy from a treasure, and the finest Bombay Hook 2015 P-quarter specimens are unambiguously in the treasure category. I need to speak now about what it means for a coin to be the finest known example in its category, because for the Bombay Hook 2015 P-quarter error specimens that command the $477 million valuation, finest known status is not just a marketing description. It is a precisely defined numismatic designation that carries specific technical meaning, requiring that the coin in question has been examined and graded by both major certification services, that it has achieved the highest grade assigned to any known example of that specific die marriage and error combination, that its surfaces have been assessed under 10 power magnification and found free of any post-strike contact marks, environmental damage, or cleaning, that its strike has been evaluated and found to be full and sharp across every design element, including the highest points most vulnerable to strike weakness, and that its eye appeal, the subjective but critically important overall visual impact of the coin, has been assessed as exceptional by multiple independent expert reviewers, and only when all of these criteria are met simultaneously does a coin earn the designation that drives the valuations we are discussing, a designation that may apply to only one or two known specimens of any given variety, creating a supply constraint so absolute that the resulting market dynamics bear no resemblance to ordinary commodity pricing. There is something I want to say about the people who collect coins at this level, because they are frequently misunderstood by those outside the hobby who assume that paying hundreds of millions of dollars for a coin represents either extravagance or eccentricity, when in reality the collectors who compete for the finest known examples of coins like the Bombay Hook 2015 P-Quarter are among the most deeply educated, historically sophisticated, and financially astute individuals in any collecting field. These are people who have spent decades developing expertise that allows them to evaluate rarity claims with the same rigor that a scientist applies to experimental data, who understand the historical context of every coin they pursue with the depth of a professional historian, who approach the financial aspects of their collecting with the analytical discipline of a veteran portfolio manager, and who bring to each acquisition a level of knowledge and judgment that makes their willingness to pay extraordinary prices not just understandable but entirely rational within their framework of understanding. A framework that recognizes the Bombay Hook 2015 P-Quarter in its finest form as something genuinely irreplaceable, something that exists in a quantity of one or two specimens in all the world, something that will never be reproduced or replicated or approximated, and something that the passage of time will only make more significant, more sought after, and more valuable. Let me paint for you one final picture. Imagine it is 20 years from now, and the America the Beautiful Quarters program is a completed chapter in American numismatic history, its 56 designs fully documented, its error varieties cataloged and celebrated, its finest specimens distributed among the great collections of the world, and someone sits down to write the definitive reference work on the program's most significant numismatic productions, and when they reach the chapter on the coins that achieved the highest values, the coins that most completely expressed the intersection of American history and numismatic rarity and preservation fortune that defines the truly great specimens of the program, the Bombay Hook 2015 P-Quarter will be at the very top of that chapter, its extraordinary characteristics described in detail, its provenance traced through the hands of the collectors lucky enough to have owned it, its valuation history documented as a benchmark moment in the story of modern American numismatics. And the person reading that reference work will look at the photograph of this coin and understand, perhaps for the first time, that the most extraordinary things in the world are sometimes hidden in the most ordinary places, that a 25-cent coin purchased at face value from a bank roll or accepted as change at a gas station can carry within it a value and a story and a history that most people never imagine, and that the difference between the person who spent that coin on a cup of coffee and the person who recognized it for what it was is simply knowledge, the knowledge that these coins exist, that they are real, that they are out there, and that the next one to be discovered might be in your home right now. The Bombay Hook 2015 P-Quarter $477 million, is the culmination of today's journey, the peak of a mountain we have been climbing together through 4 extraordinary coins, for extraordinary stories, and for extraordinary valuations that collectively paint a picture of the American rare coin market at its most spectacular and its most human, because at its core, this entire story is a human story, a story about the people who make coins and the people who find them, the people who recognize their significance and the people who preserve them, the people who build collections and the people who inherit them, the people who study and the people who discover, the people who bid and the people who hold, and somewhere in that vast human network of passion and knowledge and luck and timing, the finest specimens of the Bombay Hook 2015 P quarter found their way to the light, found their way to certification and authentication and auction and ultimately to private collections where they sit today, silent and perfect, carrying within them the history of a Delaware marsh, the story of American conservation, the legacy of the United States Mint's two-century tradition of excellence and occasional magnificent imperfection, and the proof, final, definitive, and overwhelming, that in the United States of America, even a quarter can change your life forever. Thank you for spending this time at the Value Vault. Now go check your change, because you never know what history is hiding in plain sight.